And I would go to meetings, and I'd come back to write notes or minutes, type them out. I couldn't read my handwriting. So I didn't think too much of that, and went on, and then I noticed that I started not having a natural swing in my right hand when I walked.
He started to have some issues with one arm, and I think from there is when he finally started to go to the doctor and get tested, and shortly thereafter it was diagnosed with Parkinson's. When
I was finally diagnosed with Parkinson's, and the doctor pretty much assured me that I didn't have ALS, I felt, okay, well, that's great. And how do we control this? Of course, he gave me no promise. He says, we put you on a little bit of medication. This might last for 10 years, 15 years, or it might last for 5 years. He says, there's no way to tell how quickly your symptoms will increase.
He has always been the rock. He's always been my rock. And it was hard because he had to change and he had to rely on me.
Started on some medication at that time, and it seemed to work. I was taking just a few medicines in the morning, and later on to take a few in the afternoon. But as time progressed, it continuously got worse. The last year I was having a very hard time eating because I was choking a lot, because it also affects the muscles that control swallowing. So I had to stop eating heavy meals, and I lost weight.
God, this disease is just making him look horrible and feel horrible. And I mean, I've carried him out of restaurants. I physically picked him up and carried him out of restaurants when he looked at me and said, I can't get up.
I would awaken at night because I could hear him, and he had gotten out of the bed and he was having to crawl, on all four to get to the bathroom or to get to where he needed to be. So at that point we knew that something had to be done.
I don't want to see my dad sitting in a nursing home, crippled up, where that's all he did all day. And that's not the vision you had as a kid of your dad.
Showed up in my clinic at Highland Clinic, and he had had Parkinson's for many years by then, and he was kind of at the point where he was just frustrated with the whole disease and wanted to know if there were any other options for him at that point.
Upon hearing about deep brain stimulation surgery, we both were excited about it. David had done a lot of online research and again was very positive.
Oftentimes when we have patients like David, we have had to refer them out of state for deep brain stimulation. The closest place actually being Tyler, Texas. So it's not too far away, but it's still a bit inconvenient for patients to drive back and forth from Shreveport to Tyler. And typically we would do that prior to Dr. Wilden coming to town here.
At LSU in Shreveport, there was a real gap in care for movement disorder patients. There was no one here that was offering surgery for these disorders in this town. When I came here, everybody said, well, there's not really an obvious team for you. We're not sure how this is going to work. And I called around to a few people I knew in town, and I simply asked, who is the smartest, most open-minded person you know in neurology in this area? And I got 3 different answers, and all of them were Dr. Harris.
I met her at the residency clinic, and I thought, man, she has more passion than anybody I've ever met. So she was just totally devoted to deep brain stimulation. You could tell right away she really loved what she did. And she basically built this center that we have from the ground up.
At Willis Knighton North, they had an MRI suite already that was very similar to what I had used in California. And so I approached them about potentially renovating it to meet operating room sterility standards, and they were very open to it.
It's life-changing for people. I mean, if you can't walk down a hallway, you can't drink a cup of coffee, just think of you can't even go out. I mean, you can't even go out into public like that. And these people now have their lives back, which I think is amazing, and I wanted to be part of that.
The Surgical Movement Disorders Clinic is definitely a team approach.
I heard that it was, kind of a joint effort between Mr. Elrod and Willis Knighton and Dr. Nanda and some of their efforts to get her here. I mean, it's just another wonderful story of these visionary people who continue to try to improve our community.
Well, one thing about younger doctors I find is a lot of more recent med school graduates don't seem to talk down to patients. They explain things to me. I felt very comfortable with both of them.
I remember him telling me one of his biggest fears was feeling like he couldn't even get up and walk around in his own home. And I think that courage and strength in him was readily apparent because the alternative was just so dire.
The day of surgery was probably one of the most nerve-wracking and scary days of my life.
There are risks with any surgery, but with brain surgery, you're risking stroke, hemorrhage, bleeding, things like that.
Is he going to be able to speak? Is he going to have a positive result from this? It was extremely stressful and emotional for me and for the rest of my family. To see three strapping boys, great big boys with tears in their eyes, it's very, very, very traumatic.
We prayed as a family, and I was prepared. I was very prepared, and I just let him know that if he didn't come out of this, we were going to take care of Mom.
Dr. Wildman came in and kind of went over with everybody what was exactly what we're going to do. I had a lot of confidence in her. I said a good prayer for me and for her, and that was it.
He's asleep for the entire procedure because it is about 6 hours, typically, if we're putting a brain pacemaker on both sides of the brain, which we typically do for Parkinson's disease because it affects both sides of the body.
It's much more beneficial for our Parkinson's patients to be done asleep because it's such a long surgery. They would have to be off their medications all day, and they'd have a really tough time with it.
We have a special sterile draping setup that is flexible. So the drapes actually allow us to maintain the sterile field around the head, whether he's in the middle of the MRI or on the side of it.
When I do DBS and when I'm doing the MRI, when I'm visualizing the procedure, we're seeing an exact duplicate of what the brain looks like inside. I will then transfer that image over to ClearPoint, which will allow her to set her algorithms or set her trajectory.
Dr. Wilden scrubs back in and places the leads on both sides if we're doing a bilateral.
I was able to look at the actual area in David's brain in real time and see our lead go to the therapeutic spot. So it's very gratifying right away in surgery. And then I actually go to a computer station right next to our sterile area, and I pick and fine-tune the target on the computer, and then I call in instructions to Ashley, who then actually adjusts the lead in the brain to right where I want it to be.
We do another scan and make sure that the leads are in place where we want them, and at that point we're able to close. Towards
the end of the surgery, here comes Dr. Wilden cruising down the hall. She's got a smile on her face and said, "Hey, everything went just as planned." It was a big relief to know that he's alive, he's doing okay, he went through the surgery well. This is a two-part process, and the first procedure seemed to have gone very well. And then really the only surprise was we didn't really understand the work ahead in the first couple months.
A few weeks out after the surgery, we basically turn on the device, and there is a little tweaking that we have to do, but the first time that we turned it on was awesome.
She said, "Now I'm gonna calibrate this, and I'm gonna turn it up higher than what we'll normally use it, at least to start with." And I'm not exaggerating. I watched, and I could see the muscles in his face tighten, and his face. He lost years off of his life just through that process. And I kiddingly said, every woman in town is going to want this procedure done immediately.
We were very pleased with his initial visit. So we put him at a setting we thought would start to work for him, and then we usually see people like David back in a month after that initial setting.
And then all of a sudden, she was correct. The body started adapting to the machine, and they started learning how to work the machine. Next thing you know, you see this completely changed person.
I can eat without a problem. I sleep well. I can drive. I mean, I go to the gym 4 afternoons a week, and I work out, and it's just way better than it was the year before the surgery.
We go out with friends 2 or 3 times a week, and we do all kinds of things. You know, we go to restaurants, we'll go out to different activities, and he's very comfortable, he's very relaxed. He's back to his old self now.
It's a pretty amazing feeling that I was able to be part of a team that could help him recover his life.
My favorite part of my job is to see these people like David Belanger after surgery, after he's recovered and he's doing so well. Just to see how much he's improved over the past year is just such a blessing to all of us.
Oh yeah, I'm very proud of this team. I'm very proud of this, that DBS is part of this community. For the area of this size to have this kind of technology and this kind of procedure done in this area it's outstanding.
When we realized what was going to happen with David and where the surgery was going to take place, we realized that we were going to have personnel from all 3 areas, LSU, Highland Clinic, and Willis-Knighton working together. And that was a very comforting factor to us because we felt like we were getting the cream of the crop.
It just shows that we can work together as a community with all of the facilities and all the physicians in order to make it work best for our patients.
Well, I will say thanks, first of all, and you know, they made a big difference in my life right now, and I think for the foreseeable future. And just been a joy to work with all that whole team.
You have no idea how much hope you've given our family and how much easier of a life you've given my mother and how much happiness you've given my dad and just helped all of us.
There's no way in the world I could ever thank you for all the time, effort, energy, and love that you put in to giving my husband and I our lives back, because that's what they did.
Sometimes I sit, out on my porch and think, what does it take to be battling a disease that doesn't have a cure and have to get up every day like David and have to live with that? And I think at the end of the day, we were never the heroes. It was always David and people like him.